Teaching in Japan is not what it used to be, but importantly, that doesn't always mean that it's worse. Just in some ways it may be worse, but in some ways it may be better. And so I thought it would be cool to make a video discussing this in light of the recent developments that they now have for teachers here, or the options that are available for you. So to give you a little bit of context for myself personally, I'm not a teacher now, but I did teach for about 8 years in Japan. I taught at every single level, nearly every single level, I should say, where I had taught elementary school, I've taught junior high, I've taught high school, I've taught both in the public system and I've taught in the private school system. And I have as well a teacher's license for a period of time, which allowed me to teach my classes independently. And then at least for one day, and it was interesting, I did go to a nursery school. Not my first choice, but it was an interesting experience and the people there were wonderful. So to talk a little bit about how it's changed, maybe if we begin with the kind of negative element of it first. So when I came to Japan in it was 2013, you could come here and you'd make about 250,000 yen per month. And this is a total livable wage, especially in your first year, because you have such low cost of living, not only in that Japan still has this low cost of living, just the amount that you pay for rent, but for your healthcare and for your taxes, you have a non-existent record. And so these things are naturally low. But then, as time has gone on, there's been a few things that have happened. Maybe most significantly, it's that wage stagnation in Japan is a problem. And so not only have wages been stagnant, but they've often gone down. So when I hear about people working at this is a low bar, like my low bar was that I worked for Interact. Those companies now, where they used to pay you about 250,000, they can pay you something like 210,000 yen. They just know how many aspirant people want to come to Japan, and they know that their model is to have turnover, and so they pay people less and less, and that's no good. So generally speaking, I would say that the entry-level jobs are worse now. And also, the government has tried to amend some of its laws in relation to whether they'll help you pay for things like healthcare or pension, or whether you need to do that individually. The support is less there. For example, even when I was at Interact many, many moons ago, as soon as the government said that as soon as you have your company exceeds this many individuals, then you have to help pay for their health insurance and you have to help pay for their pension. They then got through a technical loophole, a fragmentation of the company that then meant that they didn't have to do that. And then they'll play all sorts of contract games where what they'll do is they will have you not working enough hours, and they say hey, this means that your schedule is more flexible. But what this has the effect of is if they lower these hours, then you don't match that barrier to entry, let's say, or that standard that you need to then have them contribute to things like this. So more and more, that's been the case. It's a nice little kitty cat up ahead here. This is my walk to my gym that I'm taking you on today. I've never seen that cat before. Anyways, back on topic. So you have this. You have those wages getting lower and lower, and that kind of sucks. But then I do think that I'd want to balance this part of it and say that the cost of living, though wages have stagnated in Japan, the cost of living has remained so low in Japan that this can still be a really appealing option for people, because the cost of living is so crazy elsewhere in the world. It has gone, I hear my friends in Canada, the amount that they pay for rent now, and my head explodes just to hear those numbers. Where here, for example, I got my apartment back there that I'm in, and I live in a sort of suburban area. Great space, building's 5 years old and split between myself and my lady. It's like we're paying $350 a month for rent for a really nice place with great internet and access to amenities. The cost of living, so that while things have dropped, has meant that even if they have dropped, there's still a lot of benefits to just living here. And that's not even to mention the healthcare, which is so reasonable. And healthcare also includes coverage for dental. Like I try and look after my teeth, but I still had a bunch of cavities I needed to fix and so on. So that's very helpful. So generally speaking, you could say that these entry-level positions are not as good as they once were, and not even before that they were ever great. But then the counterbalance I have here is that the cost of living is quite low, remains so, and then that's okay, or at least in my opinion. It's not a reason that you wouldn't come over and do it. And then in addition to the cost of living, it's something that I've said through many, many, many videos at this point. It's also that where these jobs are not so good anymore, and it's not that they were even great before, it's that they shouldn't be looked at, and a lot of people obsess over them when they're first coming to Japan, as some kind of final solution. Like, you don't want to be working for Interact after a year in Japan. You don't want to be working for Berlitz or Hart or I can't even remember, is it Neon? I don't know, Aeon. These companies, you just want to use them as a springboard to get into the country, and then within like 6 months, you're looking for something better, and you get something better. So actually, they're diminishing quality. Who cares? They were never something that you were supposed to rely on in the first place. But I think we unequivocally have to acknowledge that they are not as good as they once were. Japan has changed in that way. But then let's counterbalance this conversation with something else that I've noticed, is that, of course, as time has gone on and the Japanese culture has worked to assimilate the foreign teacher into the way that it runs school systems, that now you have a lot more opportunities where I can look around and I'll talk to specific cases where people are no longer in this like AET, ALT assistant position. What they're doing is they're becoming much more full members of staff in Japan, which is amazing for the sort of benefits that can have for you. I'll make a little pause moment here in the video just to say I'm working on my own business and I'm building an app so kids can read good. So if you want to check that out, I'll put the links down below. That would be awesome. But anyways, back to what we're talking about. So the one way in which I've seen it, and I had a great experience with a really good friend, I got to visit him again, is in private schools. If you get into the right private school in Japan, they will sponsor you for a teaching license, and so that you can have your own dedicated classes where it's just you're no longer in an assistive role, and you can then get not a Seishain contract, that's where I'm going to go eventually with this conversation, but good contracts that mean that you have much more stability rather than working, for example, like a Board of Education, the Kyoiku Inkai, where it could just be year to year to year. And even if they're paying you a little bit better, like say 330,000 yen a month, that you never ever know when they just might get that feeling to drop you. So you could work at a private school, and I see more foreigners getting permanent employment in these private schools. So that's really cool. And then the next one that I want to talk about, I should have done my research a little better to know exactly when the program originated from. I welcome correction in the comments. There is something now called a Senka role. Not sure if it's 5 years ago or 10 years ago that this has now become an option for people. But what it is rather than the private school system, it's to do with the public school system. And in each prefecture, each year, they are hiring English teachers that get the role. It's like specialisto. They actually get hired as like an English specialist. And this role, if you get it, can be incredible in terms of removing this sort of glass ceiling that you can often have as an assistant language teacher. This moves you into the public school system as a full member of staff. And not only that, if you work for them for over a year, then, well, you get a Seishain contract in the first place. So a Seishain contract is like the mega contract in Japan. If you don't screw up, and you make it past your first year, you have a permanent job for all intents and purposes. Like, they're never going to fire you, and your salary is going to consistently go up. You are considered a full member of staff, and you are no longer in this, as I say, assistive role anymore. You're for all intents and purposes, just no different from anybody else there at the school, but that you have this special role as an English specialist that they've now hired you for. Now, the interview process, it's challenging, takes time, but if you've put in a few years, there's no reason that you couldn't get it. And I now know, where I used to work at a board of education in this area, which is quite nostalgic that I came back here. I now know 3 of the teachers that I used to work with. They've all become, the designation is SENA. They've all become this SENA, and so it means that they're all on these Seishain contracts. It means that year to year, they go up and up and up in terms of salary and experience. They have the respect as a full member of staff. Now, you got to be ready for that level of commitment for sure, because some of the things that people enjoy about being an assistant English teacher is that you're sidelined for responsibilities which the other teachers have and you do not. So you got to want to do that. But if you do, this could be a way for you to find, in the long term, a sort of path to permanent residency with stability and with a good, with a low cost of living. And if you keep with it, an actual good salary over a period of time. And it's becoming more popular. This is something that I'd never even heard of it until a couple of years ago, although obviously the program existed. But even one of these friends that I mentioned, he was one of the first people in this area to actually become one of these SENCAs. So there's some really cool different opportunities that are occurring now as the culture adapts to having teachers from abroad take on greater responsibilities in the school. And I think that that's awesome, because at the one end of the spectrum, as I say, you have the lower end jobs that are not doing so well anymore, but at the higher end of the spectrum, you're actually finding more permeability in the society, which is great for those teachers that are passionate and want to make this a kind of lifelong goal of theirs. Pretty cool. My non too exciting neighborhood, it's very flat here, but the amenities are good. The rent is low. I'm walking to my gym right now, $30 a month for a fantastic gym. I don't think you can complain about that. And across the street from the gym is an amazing onsen that I am packed and ready to go to once I finish my workout today. So that's it. I wanted to let people know about this SENA position, especially kind of give that perspective that, well, these other jobs like Interact and so on aren't so appealing anymore. They never were, and they should only be used as a kind of leaping off point. But then there's something new thrown into the mix with these SENA, with these Seishain contracts that you can get, that make an avenue into the country something that people should still consider. And that idea, whatever it is, like Japan's so cooked, and so maybe teaching so cooked in Japan. It's not. It's just evolved, requires some nuance. It's not like you're just going to have that low-hanging fruit of an amazing job immediately when you come here. It's usually that you have to battle up a little bit, but there's really good potential. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a great day. I'll catch you in the next one. If you have any comments or questions, please do write them down below. Peace.